Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Your Next 50, where we invite you to play bigger, be intentional, and conquer those limiting money stories and beliefs that are holding you back from creating the abundant life you desire. I am Sylvia.
And I am Jenny, and welcome everybody. We are talking inner critics, and so maybe we also should put in the intro, Sylvia, and conquer those inner critics that have taken over in the driver's seat of your life. Do you have an inner critic?
Don't we all, Jenny Mitchell? Don't we all have an inner critic? I think everybody has an inner critic. I think just everybody does. Mine flares up often once a month. I will say she does.
Interesting.
She does flare up. Yeah. And I have not given her a name at all. Maybe I should give her a name.
Oh, I
do
that.
Tell her to be quiet a lot. Just be quiet. Shut up. Leave me alone. But yeah, do you have one?
So the name that's coming up for me is Phyllis. Phyllis. My inner critic.
Phyllis,
just saying.
Inner critic.
And Phyllis, here's my take on inner critics. And we're going to talk today about self-compassion, which has been a big journey for me. Phyllis has a role to play in my world, Sylvia. She wants to see me safe. But the challenge is that being safe isn't always what I want to be and the places I want to go. And sometimes I want to do things, even if they are a little scary or a little uncomfortable. And Phyllis really doesn't like that. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm seeing these glasses, like pointy glasses on the end, and the little string, you know, she's got her reading glasses. Oh, I don't know about that, Jenny, right?
I think I actually knew her in real life. I knew a Phyllis with those same glasses, Jenny.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say too, I have done so much work. This is kind of forever work, I think, for anybody listening on this call. But I think the reason we wanted to talk about this was when your inner critic is paralyzing you from moving forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's just, you know, you feel like I feel like I have a noose around my neck, you know, that paralysis. And it's funny, you know, we say that it is the journey, you know, I think we always have this, you know, Michelle Obama talked about this imposter syndrome and that feeling, that paralysis. And I think as we move up or as we move forward, wherever we're doing something new and something that's we've never done before, well, that inner Phyllis will show up. She shows up. Right. And it's to keep yourself safe. I mean, biologically, humans, that's the part of the brain, the reptilian part of the brain that is there. It's designed to keep you alive. So if you are launching a new program or a new website or a new business or taking a promotion, danger.
That's right. Yeah.
We don't know. The reptilian brain will just kick in, Phyllis. Yeah. Oh, should you be doing that, my dear?
Are you really the right person for that job, right? All those self-doubts kick in. And here's where self-compassion, I think, is a superpower. This idea that you can be compassionate to Phyllis and yet not agree with her. In other words, a gentleness. And because remember, Phyllis is part of you. I'm saying this two-headed monster. You know, Phyllis is actually part of you. She's a manifestation of you. And the idea of thank you. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm going to do this anyway. That sort of ownership of your choices is really powerful.
Before we launch in, Jenny, I'd like to ask you a question because you got very excited about this word self-compassion. But when I talk about self-love, you don't like that term. What's the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and you know, you've heard me talk about self-care. I don't really like that word either. It just doesn't resonate for me. So I think one of my core values is compassion. So the idea that I can see and meet other people where they're at, I think it's what makes me a great coach. I think it's what makes me, I'd like to think, a decent human being. And kindness is also really important to me. Self-love feels more egotistical, although I know it's not. Let's just be clear. I was raised in a society where you always put yourself second, right, as a woman. And so that's getting out of my comfort zone to put my needs first, that I actually need to have a nap before I can go and shop for jeans with a 14-year-old at the Rito Center for 4 hours, right? That's what my self-love looks like in my world. And self-compassion for me is like this is good, aligning my natural compassion for others, which I identify with so clearly, and shining the light on myself for that same kind of intense compassion, that self-compassion. And the oxymoron for me is, oh my gosh, Jenny, you do this by definition for everybody else. Why? How can you make that happen for you? Why are you not
Mhm.
worthy of that big, huge, warm, cozy compassion hug? And why am I so hard on myself? I think that's like a really big question that I've been asking myself for years, is, why am I in particular? I mean, I was raised in a classical music background, right? So it's never good enough. It's
It's always
always,
criticism,
that's how we
criticism,
learn.
criticism, criticism. That's how they teach you to play
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
And I did not thrive
No,
in
no,
that milieu. I had to. I got out of
yeah,
becoming an opera singer. I didn't cut it. But
yeah.
I had lots of fun in the music program doing other things that weren't so critical, like the
Mm,
education piece.
mhm,
Which is all about thriving and getting children to love music. So very different
mhm,
aspects of the music world. Yes,
mhm.
and I think I like how you're taking that term self-compassion and relating it to your values. And I think
Yeah.
as if you're listening to this, you might not resonate with self-compassion, you might resonate with self-love. You might
Mm,
resonate with, you might understand that word inner critic, and why do we, you asked a good question. Why do we beat ourselves up so
mm,
much? Like you
mhm.
said, our upbringings for sure. Um,
I think it's a pursuit of excellence that's misguided. So, just for fun, guys, if you're listening, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being you think you're really self-compassionate, that you almost always err on your own side, that you give yourself a break when things don't go well, that you can accept things. That's 5. Where are you right now? Are you a
mm,
1 or are you a 5? And when you land where you land, where do you want to be on that scale? Because uh, I read a book. Part of my inner awakening around self-compassion was this book by Kristen Neff, Neff. She wrote a book called Fierce Self-Compassion: How Women Can Harness Kindness to Speak Up, Claim Their Power, and Thrive. Like, talk
ooh.
about aligned with your
Yeah, what a
Next
great
50,
title.
right?
Yeah, definitely.
And the way she spoke to me about this was, or the book spoke to me, it actually left me with a feeling that there was an alternate reality, an alternate way of driving for success that wasn't built on, I'm not good enough, I need to try harder. If I could just get that blank out, if only I could, if I just got another degree, all the sort of if onlys. And this idea of fierce self-compassion. The other thing that I took away from the book which was powerful, was that self-criticism is not actually an effective motivator. So
No, I
so
agree.
it's funny because we kind of assume, you think of the hockey teams and the yelling coach and the
Oh
sort of
my
screaming and
gosh.
yelling, right? I know in my house, and certainly in my upbringing, anytime someone yelled, I just sort of backed right
We
into my
recoil.
shell,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then the other thing is that self-criticism is actually a basic safety behavior. In other words, when you're uncomfortable, you attack or criticize yourself to keep yourself playing small. That's actually where it comes from, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness piece and that self-compassion to say to yourself, well, today's launch didn't go as well as I'd planned, but here's some of the things I learned, or here's how I can step up. That actually totally motivates you to go back and try again, as opposed to, oh, you suck. That was a terrible launch. What were you thinking? Like, go curl up in bed with hot tea, right?
Yeah, if you caught our episode about our latest photo shoot,
Yeah.
some of this inner criticism, we talk about it because that
Mm,
photo shoot brought up some things,
mm,
some triggers in
mm,
regards to our looks. I mean, that
right.
was part of the, what we didn't like
Mm,
about ourselves. And I think that
mm,
self-compassion piece says, put that all away. You are more
mm,
than all of the limitations that and the
mm,
criticisms that you put upon yourself, right? I
mm.
mean, if we just if we could just love our, like, and I use the word self-love, I
Yeah.
don't use the word self-compassion, but I like that. And
Mhm.
but that self-love piece, and we always go back to that. If I really truly love myself, What would I
Mm,
do in this situation? And you can use that. If I truly had self compassion
mm,
in this situation, what would I do? And that could be having a snack at 10 o'clock at night and a bowl of ice cream. If I really love myself, would I do this? No. Okay. Well, then I do love myself. It's right. These are choices.
or trying to decide if you should go to that thing that you said you'd go to, but you're having
Mm.
doubts and you're stressed out. Like, if I really loved myself, what would be my choice? Right?
Yes, yes, exactly. And I really lean into what am I resisting? Okay, there's
Mm,
resistance coming up. That is the
mm,
inner critic. The resistance is coming up.
mm,
Why is it coming up? What is the
mm,
true underlying reasons? And because we're, and then I said, move forward, move towards it. I
mm.
think moving
Yeah,
towards the
yeah,
resistance
yeah.
brings immense growth
Mm,
and more self-compassion.
mm,
And I believe we're drawn to the,
mm.
what we resist.
So in that moment, I love the fact that you're leaning in. And one thing that we have to remember is we cannot escape our emotions, right? Our
Mm.
emotions come with us regardless. They're just guaranteed to be on the trip. And the more I'm reading, the more I'm understanding that I need to lean into those emotions.
Yeah, they're not
And
good or bad, right?
no,
They're
exactly.
just
There's
emotions in that
signals.
moment, signals. Yes.
There's signals, right? Something like you
Mm.
said, leaning into the resistance. And the simple act of, I don't know if you're a meditator, I know you are, but to our listeners, pause,
Mm.
reflect, choose. It's very simple.
Mhm.
Like, is it really as simple as this, right? In other words, you're not working, the end goal is to live our lives not on autopilot, to live our lives with choices. And so this self-compassion concept has really helped me. I'll share just briefly. Kristen Neff has 3 components to self-compassion, and I find them fascinating. And there's one of them that completely lit up all my insides.
Mm.
So
Tell us, tell us.
the first one is mindfulness. So
Mhm.
nobody can be self-compassionate unless we're conscious and intentional. So mindfulness is all about being present in the moment, not living the past or planning the future.
Yeah, that
Very,
awareness piece,
yeah,
right? Being very aware in this
yeah.
moment. Yeah.
And very appropriate for those of us that handle or manage anxiety, right? Like, it's very important to learn how to be in the present. The second one is a shared sense of common humanity. And this is the
Mm.
one that gets me every time. It's that idea that I'm actually going to read what she says here. Compassion is predicated on the idea that all conscious beings are intrinsically worthy of humane treatment. When we deny compassion to ourselves but extend it to others, or when we value the needs of one group over those of another, we're undermining the basic truth that we're all part of a larger interdependent whole. Wow. So,
You know what comes up for me, Jenny? I mean, pandemic, hello. All the people, like all of the discussions and the heated discussions and the vaccine,
yeah.
non-vaccine, elderly, the young, all of oh, it's been so divisive,
Yeah.
but we haven't had that
Connected
connected
humanity.
humanity, that self-compassion. So if we're not
Well,
having self-compassion towards others,
yeah.
my trigger right there
Yeah.
is then we're not having it
Yeah.
to ourselves. And it's like
Yeah.
that judgment piece, right?
Yeah. The other thing that comes
Mm.
up is Avatar, the movie. I forget the guy's
Mm.
name, but when they cut down the trees, they don't realize how the whole planet is interconnected. And I just
Yeah.
feel like the indigenous communities are so much further ahead with us than with
Yes.
some of these concepts and some of these. So
All
that
about
idea
Mother
of,
Earth, right? I mean,
yeah,
the respect
yeah,
for Mother Earth, and
yeah,
here we are just ruining. We're coming to the earth and ruining it
yeah.
with everything. Yeah,
And
yeah.
that connected humanity is also tied to social justice. You can't
Mm.
really talk about equity for some and not equity for others. And I think that's why it's really hitting people at home, is really in their souls, is, what does connected human, we have to talk the talk and walk the walk. So these are all components of self-compassion. The third one is kindness. And I think kindness kind of gets a bad rap sometimes. We think of kindness as being weak. We think of kindness as being soft. But this caring urge, what she describes here, is experienced as the felt impulse to help. It's a warm, friendly, and supportive attitude toward ourselves as we wade through the mud of life. And the other part that comes up for me is none of us are perfect. Get over yourselves, right? Like, being perfect is not a reality. It's not tenable. It's not an option. We
Well, it's
cannot
not
be
something
perfect.
to strive for.
No.
My coach always says 70% is just
Yeah.
fine. 100% is failure. Because
Yeah.
if you're waiting to get to 100%, you'll never move
Yeah.
forward.
Right.
You'll
So
never move
again,
forward.
mindfulness, a shared sense of humanity, and kindness are the three components she
Mm,
defines for self-compassion. And that old adage, treat others as you would yourself, or whatever that expression is. These fables are based in fact and truth. They're based in stories. Living a healthy, happy, contented life starts with being kind to yourself and kind to others. And
mm,
it's just giving yourself a break when you need it. And there's research on self-compassion that there are incredible benefits for people about this. It really
mm,
does move the dial, and that it's much more inspiring to get up after a failure if you can show yourself self-compassion, as
mm.
opposed to moving on to the next thing. So as
Well,
you can
I
tell, I'm
think
hooked.
you are. You are. Sounds like a great book, and I know you've sent me a copy, and I'm going to read it. But
Yeah.
what what I'm thinking of is that we teach. If you're a parent,
Mm,
think of how many times you teach your children to be kind. Right? Don't
mm,
hit.
mm,
Say thank you. We teach children, and I think most parents, or I'm generalizing, but many parents will teach children kindness, but then we lose it along the way
mm,
when it comes to ourself. So along the way, I
mm,
think then society comes in and starts giving you limitations as a child. And as a child, you quickly learn the rules, right?
mm,
And then there are some kids who are less kind. Well, if they're less kind, well, then I'm not going to be so kind to them as well. And I hear that in my children's discussions and
mm,
conversations.
mm.
And it starts young. It starts
Yeah.
really young, and they start, and this is where those inner critics come in. I mean, you hear
Mhm.
small children talking about, oh, I'm so fat, and I'm like, oh my God, you're 8 years old. You're not. Where are
Mm.
you even hearing about this? Because we don't talk about this at home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very young. So I think there's a whole process to learning
Yeah.
self-compassion and
Yeah.
teaching that to our kids.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
there's so much about this that's kind of, I mean, I think anger is another example of those outbursts that we have, and the frustration. I mean, I'm generalizing, but it's a lot more familiar for a man to get angry than a woman to get
mm,
angry. And I think there's this combination between, and you can see it with the kids, especially, like, I did a bad thing versus I'm a bad person.
yes, that is so key.
And as a
Hmm.
parent, I know I goofed on this one. I hope I didn't. I know we'll just plan for the therapy lessons. That's all. Plan for the therapy coachings. But the milk spills. It's so easy to get angry and mad at what they did.
Eh,
But it's not that they're a bad person. It just happens, right? That's the whole idea of that self-compassion. I goofed, right? It's not like I'm a terrible person. I can never carry anything. I'm so clumsy. I'm never going to achieve in my life, and I might as well go back to bed.
when you say it that way, yes.
Right?
Phyllis, she's telling you, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, for the listeners, where does your inner critic come up
Mm,
the most? You've
mm,
been listening to this. Where are you needing some
yeah,
self-compassion?
yeah,
Is it in do you find it manifesting in your workplace, in your
yeah,
job,
yeah.
not feeling good enough to get that promotion, or you want
Mm,
to start a business, or have a new program? Is it in your relationships? What's coming up for you? And how can you then take it and then take that
mm,
self-compassion towards
mm,
yourself and move to the
mm.
next level, right?
Something I see with a lot of my clients is they got to where they get to, the senior leadership suite, or
Mhm.
that high level job, through grit and tight and
A
tears and
lot of work. Yes.
work and
Ugh.
and details and crossing the T and being better than everybody else, right? That comparison piece. And then they get there, and they can't bicycle that fast anymore because there's too many files, or they need a new leadership style, and they're beating themselves up for everything, and it's exhausting. And this is where the shift to self-compassion can feel really scary, because you're letting go of the reins. You're saying, oops, I screwed up, right? Oops, that didn't go so well. Whoops, right? And you're giving grace to your employees. And the fear is that, of course, they won't perform I think that's really the biggest fear that people have, is when you give them grace. We have multiple conversations right now on all my leadership breakfasts about, the trauma, whether we judge it ourselves as trauma or not, of employees and what they're going through with the pandemic. And, it's not our place to judge what their trauma is. It's our place to provide self-compassion. And yet, Sylvia, the work still needs to get done, right?
It does.
So this
Yes.
is the balance in the thing. So if we can't give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, the grace to have an extra day for that deadline, to say, I haven't had time for that, the day to say, oops, I missed that typo, right? Rather than I missed the typo, I must be a terrible leader. How could I possibly have missed that? My staff will think that I'm a terrible leader. I am bad, right? I'm a bad person. Like, that's kind of the sequence. And then you got to get up the next morning and do it all again and be rah for all your team. Like, no way. Like, how can we bring more humanity to the leadership suite? That's what's coming up for me. And I think self-compassion is one of those things. Oops, I screwed up. Be vulnerable.
How do we move forward, right? How do I move forward? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is not perfect, but I'm still going to take that next step.
Yeah.
I'm feeling resistance to this. I don't want to feel stupid in this, event. But I'm really feeling called to it. Let me take that step.
Yeah.
You won't feel stupid, but we're our worst critics. We are our worst critics because, I take that example of our photo shoot. We both thought we looked amazing, each other. I thought we're a goddess, and you look so hot and sexy and just in it. And then you were focusing on all the things or some of the things that you don't, that you didn't like as much. And I was doing the same thing. But,
and that is really, the beauty of your mind is that you have the power over your mind, right? So I'm making a very conscious choice from that. Like, I'd like everyone listening to know that we learn from these sessions. Like, Sylvia and I really kind of chew through these. We follow up. Like, one of the things I took away from that photo shoot one was, I'm going to enjoy and revel the parts of my body that I do like. I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to vent about my joy, as I said, rather than venting about the problems, because what we repeat becomes our reality. So I'm basically deciding that I'm gorgeous, and listeners can decide to do the same thing with me. I invite you all that as of today, what's today, September 21st, or whatever the day is, that you are all gorgeous, and that's where your mindset's going to be. And those are the beliefs that you're going to reinforce. It actually is a choice, as we talked about. It's thanks, Mr. Inner Critic. I appreciate you. Thanks, Phyllis. But I'm going to go this way anyway.
Yeah. And small steps. Start small. I think just being that, like you said, that mindfulness piece, being aware, like, oh my gosh, I read this book called Help Me, and it was, I think she counted something like 18,000 negative thoughts she had in one day about herself. Well, imagine if someone were telling that to you all day long. Of course you would believe it. But now it's your mind telling you this. So I think that awareness piece, I have done lots of work in that area, and I have moved past it. I still find myself getting caught up once in a while, and I have to realize that and then retrain. And it's really retraining your brain to think differently.
It is.
Retraining your brain. And I've told everybody I use self-hypnosis for this, and it is really, and positive affirmations, and really reframing how I want to be. It all comes down, how do I want to be? Do I want to be listening to my inner critic all day long? No, it's tiring. And
Phyllis has a lot to say, Sylvia. She's very noisy.
Yeah, I've put her in a corner. I've locked her up in a cupboard, but she comes out.
Bringing back that safety idea. Think about a toddler at 2 years old. How many times he's heard no? Right? Versus how many times he's heard beautiful or yes or wonderful or whatever the affirmations are. And why do we say no? Because you can't touch a stove, because you have to wash your hands in a car door, because no, you can't go outside without a diaper on. I don't know. And just being mindful that that's the way we're conditioned because of our reptilian brain. But
again,
it doesn't
safety.
Safety, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. And I think it's really appropriate maybe to end on this thought that in coaching and with the work that you and I do, our goal for our clients is to be safe, but not necessarily comfortable. Right?
Yes, of course. Getting out of that comfort zone, that's what brings you the most growth.
That's right.
And it's never too late to
No.
grow. We're here on this planet to grow and evolve. I truly believe in that.
Well, this would be a very different podcast if we were 25, Sylvia.
It would be. We wouldn't have the same conversations.
No.
I think with age and with experience,
Yeah.
I have, we've grown so much.
Yeah.
I do not manage people the same way I did when I was 30. When you were talking, I was like having examples in my brain of me managing people that lacked compassion.
Yeah.
And that was all about, oh, what are others going to think? And like, so what? We forgot a poster. Okay. But I remember getting really, really mad at one of my employees because she forgot and it was the sponsor and they need it there. And I was like, oh my God. And I just made everybody just feel so tense. And now I would just say, yeah, okay, we'll let them know. And next time we'll just bring it. And that would have just, and that's how I've moved into that. And again, like I said, it's a work in progress. And in our family, the spilled milk. Yeah, we don't let's not get mad at spilled milk.
Yeah.
And teaching the kids, like, let's not, why, it doesn't make sense.
That's such a beautiful energy that you're describing, right? And I think it starts with an intention. It's the idea of how you want to show up. You said that already today.
Yeah.
And when you're stuck and you can't see your way out of it, I think that is the place for a coach, whether it's you're stuck in a leadership suite, you're stuck with your business, as Sylvia, what you do, you're stuck behind a Zoom, you're stuck not being seen, all of these things. There are ways that you can shift. There are ways that are safe and yet not necessarily comfortable, where you can take those baby steps, because you have something really important to say. Every single one of you listening to this podcast has something unique that only you were put on this planet to do, see, or say. And so why wait? Why wait? Get it out there.
And if you are feeling the need, Jenny and I both work with coaches. And if you are feeling that it's too big and that you do need some assistance, you just reach out. Our coordinates are always on the bottom in the show notes. And that is what we help our clients do. We help them take those steps.
And we try and be as honest and as transparent and vulnerable on these podcasts. So you hear that we're working through it at the same time, right alongside you, slogging away. And every time I leave these podcasts, I'm inspired, Sylvia. I'm curious. I'm double down to go and do better work the next time, and can't wait for the next sessions. We've got some great topics coming up. So I guess we'll leave you there. Our next topic, Sylvia, is... Do you remember?
I believe we have guests.
Yes, we're talking about two important things. One is how are you in relationship with your money? And we're also going to be talking about divorce, which is a bit uncharted territory for us. However, we've got some wonderful guests who are going to come in and talk about their journey into divorce. And we felt it was important. And many of our clients, many of the women and our colleagues at 50 are going through these life changes as well. And so wanted to bring that to you, our beautiful, amazing audience. So thank you for listening all the way to the end.
Thank you. Thank you. So thought for today, how will you bring self-compassion into your day-to-day and into your surrounding relationships?
You know what came up? A bubble bath.
Oh, it's 27 degrees here, Jenny, today. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe a margarita.
That sounds good too.
A margarita in the bathtub. There you go. Have a wonderful week, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.